What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the bar. It's been 3 weeks. 3 whole weeks we've waited for a brand new chapter of Vigilantes, and I'll tell you, chapter 85 did not disappoint. But before we even get into this today, if you're not caught up, we're going to be going over chapter 85. So do me a favor, go catch up, and then come on back and we'll go over the chapter together. Like always, I'll give some of my thoughts along the way though, and we'll talk about what might happen in the future chapters towards the end of this video. Because if there was one thing that this chapter did, it's opening a can of worms to so much more. Also, we're in week 2 of the fan art Quirk contest. Shoot your shot and attempt to be one of the 3 people who gets a digital copy of one of these 3 titles. So don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, and let's go grab a drink. Alright, so the chapter starts off with the Naruhata boys getting interrogated. Tsukauchi is the person leading this interrogation, and the one thing that he's trying to push for is the location of the crawler. The Naruhata boys, though, they know what to do, and that's not do anything. Each of them defend themselves in their own unique way, and if you're Soga, you just keep your mouth shut. He does tell Tsukauchi if he wants answers, go talk to Popstep, but he wants to know, is she out of surgery? And he says, yeah, she's stable enough for now, but, she's not out of the woods yet. Sidebar here, this scene is awesome. I love the fact that the boys ain't snitches. People like 6ix9ine should learn from these guys. The chapter then moves to a flashback where we have Tsukauchi entering a maximum security hospital. After being bioscanned and scanned by an officer, he meets Midnight and Kazuo's mom. He discussed with Midnight if it was really necessary that Popstep be in this hospital. Midnight then responds that the boys insisted on this, and to further suspicion, after Pop was admitted, 2 suspicious phone calls were made which set off even more alarms at the hospital. Meaning now, Pop is in an even more secure wing of the hospital, and even if they wanted to get her somewhere even more secure, she is in no shape to move or be moved. The chapter then moves back to the station, and we see Queen Bee preserved in a jar. Meaning, hooray, Popstep's alive, and Queen Bee is captured, unless that's like a formaldehyde jar? Think it is. Yep, motherfucker's dead! But yeah, Tsukauchi tells Soga that Midnight let him know that thanks to the boys, Popstep is alive, and he's choosing to believe that narrative. In return, Tsukauchi needs one thing from Soga. He needs to know where Koichi Himawari, aka the Crawler, is. Soga rolls his eyes at Tsukauchi and says, look dude, you know somebody's going after the girl. Why would Koichi waste his time in talking to you when he needs to be out there trying to catch this guy? This triggers the fuck out of Tsukauchi, who flips out, and in the heat of the moment, Tsukauchi belts out screaming at Soga saying, do you know how many people have died because of this incident? And Soga thinks that vigilantism is the appropriate response? Soga then drops a literary bitch smack across Tsukauchi's face. Soga breaks it down simple for the cop. If the bodies of those innocent heroes are weighing on him, maybe he should do his damn job properly. The room falls silent. Upon Soga's statement, just like that, he's stolen the conversation, the interrogation, everything. Tsukauchi knows nothing. Soga looks at Tsukauchi and tells him, find him Detective Tanuma, who happens to be Tsukauchi's partner. Tanuma then enters and he remembers the boys from the Trigger case. They were exonerated at the time because they were all drugged. But Tanuma looks at Soga and states that his demeanor and the way that he carries himself, it reminds him of an old buddy that we know pretty well. Soga takes that cue to talk about the old man and gives a metaphor for something that I seriously do not understand. It's something about wearing a cheap sock and replacing each pair when you get a hole, and the only solution becomes putting on a new sock. Honestly, this could be the deepest metaphor ever, but I'm just confused AF. Maybe it's supposed to be a metaphor for life's inevitable misfortunes, or maybe a metaphor for acts of vigilantism itself. But I guess Soga managed to do the Chewbacca defense properly because the next scene has the boys walking away scot-free. Tanuma states that his little speech didn't win him over, but they're not the type of people that you want to be out there making trouble. So when you know that that trouble is inevitable, it's better to push them in a direction that causes trouble for villains. But of course, don't quote Tanuma on that. The next page, we see the boys walking away taunting Tsukauchi as he's looking over them, saying that he's gonna be all over this gang of vigilantes. The final part of our story is a newscast about Popstep. It turns out the newscast is coming from Koichi's cell phone. He's holed up in the Crawler Cave. I'm dubbing it the Crawler Cave. Hashtag Crawler Cave. But yeah, he learns that Popstep is still in critical condition, and Endeavor's efforts to apprehend her are receiving a mixed public opinion. And I told you guys, this is something that was totally coming. I mean, he obliterated streets to take out a teenager. But there was obviously going to be a few people that were like, oh, well, the explosions too. Come on, dude, you wrecked like 9 city blocks. You're more or less empty-handed. With that being said, we pan out to Koichi's face as he listens on to the anchor saying that the various murders that happened on scene that night are thought to be victims of Popstep's known accomplice on scene. That's it. Done. Koichi is a suspect. Koichi's world then just begins to melt away. We have this moment where stakes have just become so high that any normal person without a viable support system would start to think irrationally and very paranoid. I mean, Koichi knows that he's always been bad at reading the room, and usually when people have screamed at him, "I'm gonna kill you," afterwards it got talked out, or the dude gets arrested. It has a finite ending. With number 6 though, this is serious, this is new, and while Koichi didn't understand what 6 was even prattling on about, it was abundantly clear to understand. Number 6 looking at him with a melting face and saying that, "First I kill her, then I kill you." Koichi has to react to that, and he just sits there alone staring at his phone and dwelling in self-doubt until the boys return. They decide that the next step in all of this is going to be securing the hospital by setting up a checkpoint outside their internal checkpoint. Even though Moyu's like, "Okay, what happens when we catch the murderous psychopath?" And Soga's just like, "Oh yeah, no need, just run the fuck away, yeah, just blow the whistle and get the fuck out." So yeah, they set up an outer perimeter in broad daylight to catch anybody suspicious. Yeah, this isn't gonna go awry. For all we know, he's probably already inside. But as the chapter wraps up, they're sitting at their checkpoint and one person is attempting to enter. It's an AC repairman. They ask the man nicely, "Open your case." He protests. Soga then raises his hand and a beam of light shoots the case out of the guy's hand, revealing a camera. Soga states that this guy is definitely with the media, and the reporter begins to panic and look around about who just fired a blast at him when it's revealed to be a kinda ragged looking Koichi who's camped out on a nearby roof. Koichi takes a sigh of relief knowing that that person isn't the person that they're looking for. But he looks at his smoking palm and states that since number 6 is seriously trying to kill Popstep and him, I guess it's time for Koichi to get serious too. But yeah, that marks the end of the chapter. That was friggin' wild. There are parts that I really gotta talk about, but the number 1 part has to go to Soga and Tsukauchi in this chapter. Those two stole the show, and I am really happy we finally got to see an interrogation. Granted, we didn't get to see as much hospital action as I was hoping for, but the interrogation scene was awesome. The way that the conversation flipped on its head when Soga said that it's his fault that those people died, damn, I didn't want to say that, Tsukauchi was responsible, but he is the person that put together that team of C-listers. 4 people are dead because of Tsukauchi's negligence. The only reason why he doesn't know about number 6 is because of his hatred of lawbreakers. If Tsukauchi had made an ally of the crawler instead of trying to arrest him every 5 seconds, he would have been in the loop for this entire number 6 situation. And the Naruhata boys didn't even expect the police or the powers that be to understand that Popstep was in serious jeopardy and needed to be protected. So thank God Midnight was around. She was like the voice of reason for everybody. Also, for a second, I know I was like, oh man, is this the hospital that Ujiko or Garaki or whatever the fuck he's going by, whatever his name is it his hospital? No, it's not. That's in Jakku, this is in Naruhata. Also, I'm kind of mad at myself for not thinking that there was a huge maximum security hospital. Like, this superhero world has existed for over 100 years, so my guess is they've had it where people just walk into the ER and kill somebody. So in this case, they do need to have maximum security prisons and hospitals. I can see where Tsukauchi might see it as overkill, but at the same time, dude, you've lost the plot at this point. Afterwards, the fallout of this chapter, we see Koichi begin to kind of break apart. Popstep was his moral compass, and with Soga and the boys acting more and more like vigilantes, it's kind of a slippery slope. Koichi had a problem shooting at human-like targets because he has a natural adherence to not harming people. At the end of this chapter, he sniped a toolbox out of somebody's hands from on top of a roof. Like, Koichi mentally, he's at a crossroads and he's facing off against a villain that is on the level of hate reserved for supervillains. The wanton lust for the deaths of Koichi and Pop, they're on the same level of depravity now. Koichi is stepping over into that moral gray area. It's dangerous to go around just assaulting civilians, dude. Regardless if they're sneaking in illegally, you just can't be doing that. And Koichi is outwardly just committing crimes, and because of that, he could end up in jail. But yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video. Be sure to keep an eye out for next week's speculation video. We'll decompress from the chapter review and pull out the magnifying glass on some of the scenes. Maybe we can assume what might happen. The clock is ticking before Popstep wakes up and starts blabbing, you know? And my guess is Makoto is probably gonna show up soon, being that, you know, she said that she was on her way, right? Possibly putting Tsukauchi's sister in danger too? This is the story where Tsukauchi shouted for All Might to save his sister, so what if we got an ironic scene where he kind of says the same thing for the crawler, you know? But I'm gonna get out of here before they shut the lights off on me again. Oh, come on. Really?